as we progress into the afternoon, I would like to invite two wonderful, inspirational, motivated women who are your hosts for this afternoon as well. Dina Dinter, barrister. Hello. And Marnie Woodley, entrepreneur, and both of them have come together and relaunched this amazing store, Deco Kids. I would like them to share with us their journey as women entrepreneurs in Mauritius. Ladies, over to you.
Thank you very much, Georgina. Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I would like to welcome you to our premises and thank you for taking the time to being here. So we won't be very long. Just wanted to let you know that despite being professionals in our own fields, we decided that if we as women, we do not have our gender and our kind, then who will? But that doesn't mean that everything is just about women, because we also have men entrepreneurs that have been assisting us in our endeavors as well. But having said that, Gecko Kids is one of the, if I can put it that way without any misinformation, only local Mauritian brand for children. We have other local brands which has survived for the last 25 years. So Vani was the lead designer, the director. She's behind everything that you see, the color, the combination, and everything that goes with it. And with her expertise, and we decided that why not come up with a platform to showcase the Savoir Faire Mauricien, which is basically the Mauritian know-how. So for that, just to give you an example, we have an idea, we decide to go ahead with something, we need to produce. So each and everything has got value added. And what we have done is we've taken the local women entrepreneur. Some of them would be doing crochet, for example. So Vani actually helped them to, on the technical side, the crochet became small fish, you will see, which has been added on the dresses. And this is how we've created value. And I see there is a lot of potential in terms of what could be done in the continent. We have no natural resources. I will leave that to Vani because she will talk about that. And despite having nothing, only HR, which is very expensive on the island, we have been able to come up with these products. So imagine having the continent with the resources, the HR, so the sky's the limit as far as you're concerned. So I'm not going to be too long, so I will leave the floor to Vani, who will now say a few words on behalf of Gecko and what we'll be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Georgina. Thank you, Nina, and thank you all for coming here. It has been a wonderful week spending with you. And I know you are maybe a bit tired of hearing about the success of Mauritius, because we've been talking about it the whole week, right? Like how we succeeded so many years. So as a woman entrepreneur, I don't want to keep going on about how Mauritius succeeded, because everyone knows we succeeded, right? I would like to bring to you today the challenges we had, because I listened to you yesterday and to you too. And I can feel your fear. I can feel the doubt you're having. You know, it was exactly the same thing we had. Like 1996, EPZ started in Mauritius 20 years before 1996. And we were still struggling. We still had cyclists, we still had no employment, people were still not educated, not qualified. And yesterday when you were speaking, I said, gosh, we had exactly the same doubts. We had also consultants coming to us to explain to you how to do things better. We had institutions, we had UNDP, we had SADC, COMESA, and as a private sector, coming from a private sector, and I'm going to mention Kunal Tulsi and Rabi Jackson, who were there with me. I mean, we look young maybe, but we've been there for 8 years, Rabi, right?
50 years, man.
50 years. Kunal. And you know, we are here today to prove to you what I'm telling you is true. You know, we've been here many years. We've worked with parastatal bodies, we helped with exactly like you guys are doing now. We had that same platform in 1996 with EPZDA. They brought in so many people, and we all sat down like you and had doubts. And I was speaking to Ravi at that time. I said, Ravi, what are they speaking? Do they know what they're talking about? They are not on the production floor. They don't know we don't grow cotton in Mauritius. And now they're telling us to make t-shirts. We don't have gemstones. Ravi, how are you going to make jewelry? He today has been doing jewelry for many years. How many years?
I'm the ninth generation.
Okay. And he's got how many shops, Ravi?
Right now we have 3 shops.
And you export?
And online store.
Kunal, how many t-shirts in cotton you made even if you don't have cotton plant?
We made roughly 2,000 t-shirts.
And you export, right? And you know the struggle.
That's also.
We all have been there. We all have had problems with shipment, with customs. I hear your fear. Yesterday when you were talking about going to customs with that paper and trying to get that export right on time to the client is a nightmare. Custom people can come to us, officers can come to us and say, I'm going to create the best platform for you. But on that day, when your shipment is going, it doesn't work. Something goes wrong, right? And it's been many years before doing all that. Many years of actually working with the private sector. And if I have to reassure you today, it took many years and we got there. Okay? Some of the people who were on that on these meetings are not even here today. But they had the right mindset and they pushed it and they kept going. They wrote the right protocol. They ratified the conventions. They agreed to put Mauritius at an international level. And they are not here today, maybe we won't be here when you guys will succeed in Africa, but people have to start somewhere. Okay, and I can tell you that I've seen the team working, Tutwa consulting working. They are not only writing reports. These people are on the floor. They know what's happening. They listen to people. They work in Mauritius. They will do the same for Africa. And I'm not only talking about Tutwa, I'm talking about all the institutions, SADC, COMISA. They've done it before. And it's a matter of trusting them. Of course, they have to listen to you. Of course, they will have to adapt and make the right recommendations. Some measures can go wrong. We all know how many things went wrong for Mauritius. So many things didn't succeed. We had failures too. But we can proudly say that our EPZ sector has created employment. Women have been employed, have been able to receive a revenue every month, send their kids to school. Today, these kids are graduating at university because of their parents working in the EPZ sector. My kids are at university, I mean, not all, but ones that already, because I was working in the EPZ sector. Ravi, same thing for you. Kuna, I'm only talking about you too, but there are so many other people behind us. We have about 75 different products. I could not bring all of them here today. And all this, just to tell you this example, Dina insisted that we do this event here today to show you actually one example. There are many more examples in Mauritius. Why this example? Because when I found out that Zambia was planning to make a project, Monday, your project, when I saw that and I said, gosh, she's got cotton. You know how happy I would have been in the 1997, starting the EPZ and growing cotton in Mauritius? We have only sugar cane, you know, and you guys have got cotton. And all these products is 100% cotton. That's why for us, we wanted you to see that. We import the yarn, maybe it comes from Zambia, goes to China. I'm telling you, it goes to China for the finishing processing. Then they make the yarns and the fabric, and then maybe it comes back to us. You know, and we don't even grow it here. So I don't know how to end my presentation with, I have to reassure you, after hearing everything you said during this week, I can only tell you, as a woman entrepreneur, it will happen. We will just have to trust the process. Communicate with each other, and trust the people who maybe know how to make it happen. And I hope to do trade and do some wonderful things with the woman entrepreneur in Africa. And I think it's time for Africa to have its own revolution like us. Okay, and I don't know if you have any questions.
Now, I'm not going to talk a lot today. I just want to give a brief intro of what we do. I want to contextualize the reason why we started with the regional trade advocacy, and I wanted to briefly talk about some of the recommendations and the challenges in what I consider to be a summary of our advocacy work across West Africa and in trade advocacy on addressing the bottlenecks and the challenges for roads, for trade and transport challenges across the region. So in 2011, we identified a gap on a regional level with regard to the implementation and the enforcement of regional regulations on a national level. And we found out that the private sector was not really engaged actively or as actively engaged as it has to be on policy making. And so ours, Borderless Alliance, was a private sector-led regional trade initiative to tackle trade and transport challenges across West Africa in partnership and collaboration between the various stakeholders involved, policy makers, government authorities, business associations, traders, transporters, economic operators, all of them together to create this platform where we can engage, identify the issues, propose solutions, and implement these solutions. So that is the background. We later on formed a regional trade advocacy group, officially launched in 2012. Today we are more than 11 years on this activity, myself having been a founding member and the president of its executive committee for 4 years between 2012 and 2016, and then up to now serving as the president of its national chapter. This is where I come from within this kind of work. Now, some contextualization. I am a gender advocate by choice, not by my own decision, but it just came naturally as I was evolving on the side. Because I was an executive director of a family business. So, and on the side, I was doing regional advocacy. I was wearing many hats. Forgotten country, I call it. We joke about it in Ghana, where I come from. And so I go around on these assignments in order to look at how to not only advance trade, but also to empower the traders, the representatives of the business association, especially the women-led businesses, who make up more than 70% of trade in the informal sector in West Africa. And I think it's a relatively accurate figure for elsewhere across the continent. We have a lot of informal trade. And that is one of the reasons why it makes it so difficult to identify some of the issues that happen to some of these people, and especially the women. So this, being a father of a 9-year-old girl and a 16-year-old, COVID was a transformation actually phase, because we've seen so many companies and breadwinners lose their jobs. And it was the women actually who kept going to become the main breadwinner in their families, in their districts, in their villages, all across Africa in particular. And that made the case even more and reinforced the need to empower some of these women-led trade and businesses in order to unlock their potentials and to look out at how to access these markets that they are part of, not just the small markets across Africa, because all of Africa is made up of small fragmented markets. And things like the African Continental Free Trade Area is just here to integrate all of this market into one in order to allow not only the multinationals and the big corporations, but also the smaller companies, the SMEs, the mom and pop stores to access these markets and in a simplified way. So these are the context and the background. And today we are here with the generous support and the organization by Leslie and the team and the partners, whom I'm so grateful for, to talk lightly or briefly about this publication which we've made, which is based on some of the road trips that we have been engaged across the region, across the years. So we've been along the corridor from Abidjan to Lagos in West Africa, along the coastal area. And we've stopped at the border region and we've engaged with stakeholders. And then we've done the same across many other corridors, whether from Tema on the coastal area in Ghana, all the way to Kaga, which is our northern border, neighboring Burkina Faso. And we've done that kind of trips parallel to the Abidjan-Lagos, that is from the western side of West Africa, from Dakar, going in more or less a straight line into West Africa, up to Bamako. And so we've came up with some interesting observations from interacting with the various representatives of the business associations, especially at the borders. And so we found out that there were 5 main challenges that were directly in connection with trade facilitation. The number one is the lack of adequate infrastructure. Not just in the terms of having a border crossing and the roads and agencies that are present there in order to process the goods, but way beyond that, because you will need security structures, you need health structure, you need sanitary structures, you need accommodation sometimes, because economic operators, traders, businessmen and women would need sometimes to spend the night for one reason or the other at the border, or spend more than 1 or 2 or 3 hours or even a day. So what do you do when you have a lack of adequate infrastructure? The border crossing immediately becomes less safe, less secure, more costly, and more time. The number 2 challenge is the entrenched culture of gender bias. Whether willingly or unwillingly, the border crossings, the official border crossings, that is, because we know that there are so many other border crossings. And we are focusing on the official border crossings for the reason of making trade more safe and secure, so that we eliminate the need to sneak across borders or to use other borders that are less safe and secure. So the border seems to be built with the assumption that these are male traders crossing. Meanwhile, the borders are mainly used by women traders or by smaller companies. This creates a situation where the environment is tough, and the officers in charge or the agencies in charge would like to maximize the profit out of these situations. So what do we do? Lots of stories came up. Some off the record, some on the record, most of the time off the record, because the women have a tendency not to come out and be forthcoming because of so many issues, social, economic, lots of issues. The third challenge is the absence of adequate information. So with our advocacy across the region, we emphasize the need to know what kind of trade regulations and requirements will be needed when you are crossing the border. And so whether economic operators will know the information or not before setting off on their journey. Most of the time you get to the borders, you try to find the information to make sure that you have the right documents or the right information and regulations and requirements. And there are not adequate or sufficient posts or outlets that give or hand out this information. This creates all kinds of illicit fees and negotiations that take place at borders. The fourth challenge is the informal nature of cross-border trade, which we were talking about earlier. And this makes it difficult for 2 reasons. The first one is that you can't really put a value or a volume to the amount of trade that goes in across a particular border crossing, which makes it difficult for a policy maker to decide on the kind of policies that need to be enforced in a particular border crossing to allow or to enhance or to facilitate the movement of these particular goods or services. So this is one aspect. And the other aspect, obviously, is that it becomes very difficult to clear a consignment that does not have the required documentation. And it adds up to the layer of the illicit fees that change hands. And the fifth and the very last one is the dispute resolution. Because you've decided that you are trading goods across the borders, you get your goods, you get your documents, you get your transport, you get to the border, you're crossing in, something happens, you are unhappy, and you need to resolve some issue. where do you go to? In ECOWAS area, there is no dispute mechanism in place that allows interested parties to go and to resolve issues as they stand. Rather, it is all part of a gentleman's agreement decision between heads of state and governments back during the founding years of the Economic Commission of West Africa, that no disputes or no sanctions should take place. So the representatives from the government agencies of the respective countries will bundle their cases, their complaints, their challenges from the economic operators. They will head in ad hoc trade missions or to country X or country Y or country Z, and then they will try to solve these issues. Lots of compromise generated. So these are the main issues and challenges that we found out that keeps on coming on and on and on in most of our trips. And then the recommendations that go with it to address these various recommendations. Now, here's the thing, the best of evidence-based advocacy cannot go too far without having the reciprocation from the policymakers who have the intention to implement or to enforce these kinds of policy suggestions. So, and that is where the role of private sector engagement with policymaking, or what I call public-private partnership of policymaking, will have to come up in order to make sure that the first, to make sure of two things. The first one is to generate enough buy-in and to highlight the priorities that the economic operators in the various countries want their policymaker to implement. Because it's not enough to come and to say these are decisions. We have to say that these decisions have been discussed. It has been agreed by us. And so we want you to implement it. If they don't implement it, then you come and you say, we've agreed on this. Or we have not agreed on this. And so these will be healthy, normal dynamics that will help not just give the power of enforcement, but also eventually will lead to an enhanced and enabling trade and business environment for all of the representatives, be it women-led traders, or cross-border traders, or young or marginalized groups of societies, or even established bigger firms and multinationals. So the point is to be inclusive, the point is to be collaborative, and to know that each and everyone has a role to play in order to advance the trade facilitation agenda. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is my brief submission, and I thank you for your attention, and I stand ready for any questions.
Any questions? Yes.
Do you have any examples of, policies that came about because of the consultations that you had that you can share?
So here's a very interesting case that we had once when we were sitting down with the representatives of the regional commanders of Ghana Police. And we sat down in Kumasi sometime in 2016, and we were talking about a very particular issue at the time, among many other issues. And we were talking about the veterinary requirements for livestock, and that there was an insistence on a particular document that is required from a particular government agency. And so they were clueless about it. And so the reason they were clueless about it is because obviously nobody has told them that these are the kinds of trade flows that were coming through the borders. And so someone thought that we would instate something that allows it to become something like a stamping fee for the border agencies which are at the borders, right? And so this information apparently didn't trickle down all the way to head office. And this created a bit of a problem that required some kind of internal consultation for them to come back with. But the case never advanced too far, because once it got to head office, then later on, it just faded. Just like what happens when you throw a pebble in the water and then it generates this kind of a wave, and then the wave dies by itself. So this is why private sector engagement, continued engagement, is very important. So there are multiple cases where policies need to be enacted or enforced, either new policies or enforcing old policies. Most of the time, what we found out that there is no need for new policies. The laws are good, the laws are perfect, but the enforcement of the implementation is simply not there. That is one layer of the problem. And the second layer, because we're still on a national level, right? There are so many different levels. On a national level, we have laws. We need to align these laws with our regional economic communities so that we are aligned on the commitment to enforce the national and regional regulations. And then we have the continental ones. So all of these need to match up, but someone has to do the work. Someone has to do the legwork. And most of the time, the policymakers are not doing it. So who's going to do that? I hope I answered the question. I know we went a bit
Yeah, but you just
beyond.
posed another question, so.
So who is going to do this kind of work, right?
Yeah.
Well, as we tell policymakers and policy takers, this kind of advocacy work, at times there's this assumption that someone will come and do the work, you know, and because there's an assumption that someone will eventually step up to the table and do the work, it means that he will come fully ready to put up and mobilize the resources that are required to do this kind of work. And I'm not talking about financial resources. We're talking about human resources. We're talking about in-kind, the organization of these kind of policy settings. Sometimes consultative services which are associated with that. I'm not talking about it from a financial basis. I'm talking about all what it takes in order to make sure that a policy engagement manifests itself and ends up successfully. And then lastly, there's the political will, which in some countries is not existing. You are lucky to be in a country where there is a high political will. Maybe it's the survival law or something, because either do or die. And so that is what led Mauritius to understand at the political level that we're going to fail into non-existence if we don't do something, put ourselves and make ourselves relevant. That's what it's going to do. But in countries where there is a loose interpretation of accountability or governance, where do we move from this? These are some of the big questions. Who does what, and where, and who is developing at the end.
Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, it still leaves a lot of questions, but
We'll give you some time to network a bit later then.
And so maybe just a final question then from my side is, in terms of the work that you've done, would you recommend, having this sort of advocacy organizations set up by a private sector across the continent?
I think that we need to empower business and trade associations to take up the role on behalf of the groups, because it's not possible to be a private economic operator and to undertake this advocacy alone. But we need to have the requirements. We need to organize ourselves better all across the continent. I think we need to have far more business associations, trade associations. I think we need to set them along certain principles, simplify them. And I need that to get there will require these groups of people to agree among themselves on what are their priorities. This is internal advocacy. You need to find out and in a way, it's the pure interpretation of politics. And I think it's a very healthy thing. Maybe because I come from a country where you have something called freedom of association. In Ghana, anyone can decide to wake up one day and form an association or something, right? So, but apart from that, I believe that you can't engage with individuals on a continent of 1.4 billion, let alone a country of 35 million like ourselves. A country of 1 million, maybe you can have less associations, but you still need to have many of these. You have terminal operators, transporters, shippers, you have exporters, you have importers, you have livestock, you have lots of stuff. And I'm just talking business. So in a simple answer, yes, I believe that we need to have more organization. We need to build up the capacities, the organizational capacities, and these are also part of some of the recommendations. I didn't go through the suggestions and the recommendations because that would take too much time. But it's all in the paper. I just remember that I need to show you guys that there is that.
You need to launch your paper.
Yes. So it's a very short reading. Some people said it was very enjoyable, very light. It addresses a wide audience, so there's very little technical wording inside. It is subject to a lot of interpretation in positive ways and suggests ways to move forward. And later on, once we sit down and design a few infographics, we will use it for an engagement in empowerment programs on national trade facilitation committees, reaching out to the multilateral development agencies, and on the national policies, because we want to drive and to mainstream the gender agenda for several reasons. First of all, they make up half of the population. And second of all, most of the time they make up more than half of the economic operators in the respective countries in Africa. So there's an economic case, there's a social case, a political case. Because we need to drive this agenda forward for the betterment of our continent.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Sia. Look forward to reading your paper a bit later. Thank you very much. And I think that leads us nicely into the next speaker. We have looked at many ways in Mauritius on how do we keep the balance of inclusion of getting the entrepreneurs export ready, making sure we have the right components coming in with the right raw materials. And one platform that I have been lucky to have been a part of from the very beginning, and now I've seen it coming to fruition, is the She Trades platform. And I've got somebody in from the EDB, Mrs. Kiran Bahadur. She will take us through the She Trades platform, what it is, and what it's doing for Mauritius and the region. Kiran, over to you. Yeah, I'm sorry. The EDB is the Economic Development Board, and Kiran's the manager there.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are all awake. Not so. Are you all awake? Please shake your hand.
Yes, we are.
Thank you. So, good afternoon. Actually, it is a pleasure to be with you today. And I was asked by Georgina to give an overview of She Trades. So Mauritius just recently joined the big family of She Trades, and the She Trades is being hosted by the Economic Development Board. How many knows about the Economic Development Board? Just briefly, let me explain what we do. So we are a government agency working under the aegis of the Ministry of Finance, and our mandate is eventually to promote investment, export, and also the international financial services sector. So, in broad nutshell, this is what we do. Okay. So, coming to the She Trades initiative, how many knows about the She Trades? All right. So, it is a global initiative of the International Trade Center, ITC, which aims at connecting 3 million women entrepreneurs to market and the global network of international buyers. So it's a platform where buyers, investors, all need to do business, and it's a She Trades, so dedicated to women. So the Mauritius She Trades Hub was officially launched on 9 March 2023 in the presence of the executive director of ITC, who was in Mauritius, Ms. Pamela Coordinator, and we were very much privileged to have her presence here. So during this opening session, we signed an MOU. Why this MOU? It's just to show the depth, the strength, and strategic dimension we would like to facilitate in bolstering growth of women-led businesses in Mauritius. So the She Trades initiative is all about helping our entrepreneurs who live in the region, be it in Mauritius, to be connected to the world. It is about broadening the horizon and circle of opportunities for all. It is about strengthening the multiple pathways of progression, uncovering the different strengths of business women, and helping their talents flourish. You know, we have lots of values, especially we are she. Okay, so we have lots of values. So the idea of having this hub is eventually to empower women in entrepreneurship, to be more like, you know, on having access, unlocking the opportunities. So it's really bringing down the barriers to exporting and empowering women, which would have a lot of economic social benefit at the end. Because if we are empowering women in trade and in businesses, at the end of the day, it's the whole economy that's going to benefit from this. I would highly say that women entrepreneurs who can benefit from She Trades platform is a woman who can open new markets and new opportunities, sell and spread ideas, support community and family. Because when we are speaking about family, we mean a whole lot now on this part, whole of the whole ecosystem. So we signed a letter of intent with the ITC, and since then we have been doing a range of programs to enhance women in businesses. We did have a platform where we have like hundreds of women registered, just recently launched our platform. And it's a platform that enables women to connect their products, services to the regional and global market. Furthermore, a number of more initiatives have been undertaken. We have training, capacity building program dedicated to women according to their needs. Just recently we had one with experts from ITC farming in textile and apparel sector. It's because we know that we have women in this sector and they need to be sort like having more like this coaching to find more trust in themselves, believe in themselves, negotiations, practicing, and also market access, opening market access. So also we are not stopping here. We have lots of more interesting programs coming. So I would highly recommend, suggest, if you have not yet registered to She Trade, I know you are from different countries, but at least you can eventually, you can eventually inform your friends, relatives to register. It's free of cost, and the number of benefits you're going to have from it is really enormous. The tools that are available there will help you in analyzing, making analysis, in this market okay for me. I had a presentation, but I couldn't display it here because there was no projector, but share me your contact. It will be my pleasure to share the presentation with all the tools that we have. So we have a platform with tools to enable you to analyze which market you can eventually enter. Is there a benefit for this product? Is there, all these market access tools, they are really amazing and it's free of cost, so I would highly recommend you take advantage of this platform. So on top of that, what we want to do is really having this close partnership, be it with the private sector, the public sector, because alone we couldn't bring along this empowerment. We need you all, to say the private sector, the public sector, working hand in hand to go along and bring this empowerment, this boost we want to really bring in our society. Not to forget that it's more than 50% of the population that are women in Mauritius. So they have lots of talent. We just need to, encourage them and coach them, mentor them, believe in themselves, and I'm sure that the result will be just amazing. So I will just end here, but if you have questions, I'm ready to answer it, and give me your contact. It will be my pleasure to share the presentation I have. You will have the links with all these amazing tools, what we are doing, we will keep you in touch what we are doing, what have been done, what is coming next, and on top of that, we have, as I mentioned, we have trainers from international reputed organizations coming to coach and empower ladies, women entrepreneurs. So, Ravi, see this opportunity. Thank you.
Questions?
Hello, hi, thank you so much for that presentation. I just wondered whether, I'm aware of at least a handful of free trade initiatives in mainland Africa, South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana. Is there any collaboration amongst the various free trade initiatives, and yes, what are those collaborations?
Yeah, actually we all work under the She Trades dream, ITC She Trades. So we do have this collaboration, but we need to network. That's why I said that it's not about only women, it's also about companies, All She Trades hubs, if we can work together, especially we on the same region, so I would highly recommend we work together to see the She Trades. We can have more like regional events, organize more regional events together, we will be more powerful. There is a sort of synergy, but we need to further